We're covering 3 key planning opportunities for large IRAs, including how to reduce taxes, strategically turn your IRA into retirement income, and how to create a lasting legacy. Hi, I'm Molly Nelson here with Loren, Merkle, and Clint Huntrods, and today it's all about the IRA. So right off the top, Loren, let's kind of start with a little IRA 101.
IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account, and there's 2 common ways you can have money go into an IRA. One is through contributions, and when you contribute to an IRA, if you qualify, you can deduct that contribution from your taxes, which means once the money is underneath the IRA, it has not been taxed and it can grow tax deferred. The second most common way to put money underneath an IRA is from an old employer plan. You leave an employer, that employer offered you a 401k plan or a 403b plan. You can roll that money into the IRA, and just like your contribution, it will grow tax deferred until a later point down the road. In most cases, after the age of 59 and a half, you can take that money out. When you take it out, it is then taxable.
And Loren, it can be valuable to start to keep those 401ks handy and just get them all into that IRA over time. We recently worked with a family that had 11 different old 401ks for one individual. And she was having a hard time keeping track of all of them. Some of them were changing the custodian they worked with. And so as you have 11 IRA 401ks, or maybe you've got 2, sometimes that can be really valuable for families to get that all together in an IRA. And then you can see how that's going to be fitting within your overall retirement plan a little bit easier than having to track 11 to however many different accounts.
That's one of the advantages of an IRA. What are the other advantages?
Is you can invest in just about anything you want to, and that's something that is overlooked many times with an IRA, because oftentimes people think about an IRA and they think, well, I'm going to be invested at a bank product, a CD at the bank. I don't have a lot of other options, where you actually have way more options of investment options underneath the IRA than you do underneath an employer plan. The employer plan, you're probably limited to maybe 10, 20 different options that your employer offers for you, where an IRA, you literally have hundreds and even thousands of different options. So investment options is one of those benefits. You have more control over your money.
And that's a great thing to note, because a lot of times families contribute to a 401k, the new money added in sometimes gets added to the rate of return, and they feel like, hey, my 401k has done really well. Do I want to make a switch? But there's a lot of different opportunities and a lot more investment options in an IRA than often what those 401ks offer.
Yeah, that's a good clarification. The return potential 401k versus the IRA is literally about the same. Because if you're like risk underneath both of those, the investments are going to perform the same way or very similar. But underneath the 401k plan, your contributions can make it seem like the 401k plan is outperforming. So we go through a couple years of performance like what we've had over the last couple. People like, I don't want to do anything with my employer plan, even though I've left that employer. Well, it is worth considering the option of moving it to the IRA because of that control and the flexibility that the IRA offers.
Today we're talking about large IRAs, so let's talk about that shift as you get a little bit closer to retirement. The large IRA, there's nothing wrong with having a large IRA, but it has some different ways you need to at least look at it as you get closer to retirement.
Yeah, some of the areas is definitely analyzing how much risk you're taking and starting to think more about how some of that risk that you've been taking, the strategies that you're in, are going to fit in this new phase of life, retirement, where you maybe are starting to take distributions. It's not just adding new money into it over time. The other big thing to think about is the tax aspect. The larger that IRA is, so is the larger the tax bill that's going to be associated when you start to take those distributions out. So that's where you want to make sure you're thinking proactive with that tax plan to identify the ways to pay that on your terms rather than just let it play out on the IRS's.
Okay, today we want to talk about how to help you make the most of your IRA. So we've got 3 key planning strategies. Let's talk about strategy number 1 for a large IRA, the Roth conversion. Loren, what do we need to know?
Well, the only thing better than a large IRA is a large tax-free IRA, and that's really what a Roth conversion can do for a lot of pre-retirees and retirees. But it's not as simple as just saying, hey, I got this big IRA, I want to make it a Roth. You have to be really strategic and intentional. Because when you move the money from your pre-tax IRA to the Roth, you are taxed on whatever dollar amount you move in the year that you move it. So you want to make sure that you're not moving too much, because then it's going to shoot you into a higher tax rate. And after all, any Roth conversion strategy, your goal is to pay at the least amount of taxes on this pot of money as you can. because once that money gets underneath the Roth, it grows tax-free. Later on down the road, you're going to pull that money out. It's going to come to you tax-free, or whatever money you don't use underneath the Roth IRA will get passed on to your loved ones. It will go to them tax-free as well. But you have to be really careful and intentional to make sure that you're actually doing what you set out to do, which is decrease your retirement tax bill instead of increasing it.
And Clint, for a lot of families, this looks like maybe a partial conversion. They don't necessarily take the entire IRA or do it all in 1 year. It's definitely a thought out strategy.
Yeah, that really gets down to building out that longer term retirement plan where we can see what potential bracket do you have down the road. You know, maybe at required minimum distribution age, you find that if you don't do anything, you could get driven up into a higher tax bracket or even potentially two. And so if you can identify, thinking more long-term, you've got a favorable tax bracket this year, that likely makes sense to take advantage of, but you also want to be thinking about how that may impact other parts of your plan. So the tax plan needs to be working with the investment plan, income, and then potentially even healthcare. We show too much income, now that could start to shift how much it is that we pay for healthcare. So you want to make sure that comprehensive plan, you can see how the decision you might make to do a conversion is going to impact those other areas of your plan.
Yeah, this tax planning is not a set it and forget it. Each and every year we sit down with the families and individuals that we serve. We're having these conversations about Roth conversions and other tax planning strategies to identify this year, here's what makes the most sense for your tax strategy, whether it's a Roth conversion or not, or other tax strategies. And then we also project forward. Here's what we're thinking about next year. Here's what we're thinking about 2 years down the road, because each and every year can look a little bit different based on your life, your lifestyle changes, also legislative changes, because what we do know, the one thing constant with legislation is change.
What about the timing of a Roth conversion? Is there a general age at which it's best, or does it vary?
Yeah, often that window of opportunity really opens up once one or both individuals turn off their income and they enter into retirement. That often starts to lower what it is that they maybe are at from a tax standpoint. And so that can really be a great window between retirement and then when they're going to reach RMD age. So for a lot of families, it's 73. For many today, it's now 75, depends on the year that you were born in. And that's where you want to start to think about when is your RMD age, and then what does that window of opportunity look like from retirement till then, to make sure you're taking advantage of any opportunities that there are. Every December 31 that goes by that you haven't implemented a proactive tax plan, there could be an opportunity missed. So for some families, conversions can make sense even before they're retired. And so that's really important to make sure that your tax plan is customized for you and your situation and your portfolio.
We're talking about key planning strategies for a large IRA. Clint shows us a real-world example of turning a large IRA into retirement income next. Welcome back. I'm Molly Nelson here with Loren Merkle and Clint Huntrods. They're both certified financial fiduciaries. Loren is also a certified financial planner, and Clint has a PhD. And it's all about the large IRA. And we're kind of laughing here before we started rolling. Like, who would think that we would have a conversation about this being a problem if you have a large IRA?
Yeah, the irony is not lost on us that we're sitting here talking about how a large IRA at retirement can be a problem, because all of these years you've been thinking about, one day, how am I going to create this opportunity to have enough money saved that you don't have to work anymore? And here you are. You've done the hard work, and now you have this large IRA, and we're saying this can be problematic. So what we have to do, and the reason it's problematic is because of the taxes, because you have to take this money out at some point, or your beneficiaries will, and you're going to pay taxes. The question is, how much are you going to pay in taxes? So in order to minimize your overall retirement tax bill on this large IRA and all the other assets, including pension and even Social Security, we have to get creative. We have to think outside the box. We have to look at all the strategies available to us today, and also consider legislation and think about what strategies could be coming down the road in order to make these tactical and strategic decisions to minimize the tax bill on the IRA.
Clint, you just did this. We sat down with a family that a $2 million IRA. We are not going to, of course, give any identifying information, but the strategy you put in place is pretty neat.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really starting to think about, as they've saved up in their IRAs and 401ks over time, they're starting to get closer to retirement. They're about 5 years out. And now their question is, well, what do we do with this? You know, what does that look like? And how do we start to get income from it? So for this particular family, they were right around age 59 and a half. And as they were at 59 and a half, they now had the ability to roll out the balance within their 401k. Now in that, they're looking for an in-service rollover. They won't close their 401k down. They'll continue to build that back up during their working career, but they now have the ability to take control over that 401k and move it out into an IRA. That allows them to have a lot more ability to get strategic. So some of the reasons why they might do that. It doesn't make sense in every case, but in this case, it gave them more investment options. It also allowed them to start to think more about income and tax planning. And the last thing is they're just starting to get closer to retirement. They want to plan. They want to see what that roadmap looks like so that they can have confidence these next 5 years, and then as they transition to and through retirement. And as we think about helping families, we really want to start by building that comprehensive retirement plan first. And as we do that, that will start to drive the investment decisions that are appropriate for any individual family. And sometimes this gets reversed. Really, decisions get driven more by investments and investments only. So we want to think about helping families by building that comprehensive plan first, and that will steer us towards the right direction from an investment standpoint. And this is an example of a recent family that we worked with. And so when we start to think about the other pillars of their plan, we think about lifestyle. What do they want to do in retirement? What's it going to cost each month for them to do that? And we've identified that it's going to be $10,000 per month that they are seeking. In their eyes, they really want to continue a pretty similar lifestyle as what they have during their working years and make sure that continues out into retirement. So they're looking for about $10,000 per month. So from a lifestyle pillar, we've got that identified. From an income standpoint, we know that they have Social Security. And as they start to make those elections, we anticipate Bob to be able to get about $2,500 per month from Social Security. And then Susan, her Social Security is a little bit higher at $3,000 per month. So as we enter into retirement, they've got Social Security on. Those are those guaranteed income streams. What you can find is that gives them $5,500 a month. Well, they want to spend $10,000. So they're going to find that they have a shortfall each and every month of about $4,500. Now, that's not a bad thing. That's why they've saved in that IRA. That's why they've built up assets over time to give them the ability to spend that $10,000 a month. The problem is they don't know how to do that. Or how do I take my IRA and turn that into an income stream? So we were able to help this family with that. So we break down their $2 million that they've saved in IRA, and we took $500,000 towards an income strategy. We'll talk more about that in a second, but really for 25% of their overall portfolio, now they are able to find that shortfall starting to close. Now with the rest of their portfolio, we're thinking about some strategies that are more short-term, a little bit more protected should they need to get to a distribution, maybe even before they retire or shortly after. So that's a little bit lower risk, a little bit more protected. Now, when we start to look at this, we've got some midterm strategies. Maybe these are dollars they're thinking of spending potentially 5, 10 years down the road. So they're comfortable with taking some market risk with that. As we start to give every dollar a job within their portfolio, we identify that there's about $750,000 that's really long term. We're thinking of 15, 20 years out. And so this is a great place across their portfolio to actually take a little bit of extra risk. And they're comfortable with that. They see how it all fits within the overall portfolio. So you can kind of see how this breaks down that $2 million that they're all kind of investing for growth, now starting to adjust for that new phase of life they're entering into, which is retirement. So with this $500,000 that's devoted for that income strategy, they're right at 59 and a half. So around age 60, they invest in this strategy. They put those dollars in there, and then the way that they anticipate using this is they get some growth over time, and that's protected and guaranteed, and then eventually they will turn that on for an income stream. That'll be a joint life payout. It'll pay for as long as one of them is alive, and if they put that $500,000 in, that would be an amount of about $4,500 per month. So you can see that's the exact number that they need to start to feel really confident with their retirement decision. They know they've got that Social Security that's coming in about $5,500 a month. Now with this income strategy, they have another $4,500 a month that they can count on. They can feel really confident spending because they know that it's coming right back the very next month. So that gets them to their total lifestyle goal in retirement of $10,000 per month. And as we started to map this out for this family, they said, we like this. This feels really good. And they kind of came into us initially and they were expressing hesitation and concern over the retirement decisions. This started to give them a lot more confidence that, hey, 5 short years from now, we turn that on, we've got Social Security going, and now we can confidently spend and do the things that we want to do from a retirement lifestyle standpoint. So as we think about helping families, we want to build that plan out first. That'll start to guide us towards the right decisions, investments and otherwise. In their case, it made sense at 59 and a half to start to take more control over their 401k, roll that out into an IRA, and now they've got a lot more investment options. It also gives them the ability to get a lot more holistic planning. And as we think about how we helped this family, the decisions that we made from an investment standpoint that were based on their plan, they felt really good about. They knew why we're doing what we're doing, and they could start to see how all of this fits together.
Clint, one of the things I was thinking about as I was watching you go over that is you said this family felt really good. And other families who we've done this planning for also feel really good, because the number one thing as pre-retirees make the transition to retirement is they lack confidence. Now, you're looking at this couple, they've saved well. I mean, they have a $2 million IRA plus Social Security, and they had a pension. So they've done really well. And they could have just kind of coasted to retirement and started to take money out of their $2 million IRA to fill that gap. But what you did for them is created a really intentional plan that was very segmented. So they had the $2 million, they allocated $500,000 to guaranteed income, so they know they're going to get that income no matter what this crazy market does. They can afford their lifestyle month over month, year over year, no matter what happens. And then they also have $250,000 set aside short term for the contingencies, the what ifs. You know better than even us, things happen in life. And as much as we want to plan for tomorrow or next year is going to bring things that we can't anticipate. $250,000 set aside for the what ifs. That's very powerful, comforting, and provides a lot of confidence. And then the rest of that money was allocated towards the 3 to 10 year and 10 year and beyond, because we want to have a future in retirement. And that's kind of the future of the portfolio that's set aside to say, hey, I'm going to be around here for a while. I want to have fun for a while. This money's allocated towards that. And all of that together, that specific plan, the intentional planning, really provides that confidence, which so many people are lacking, even those with large IRAs, as they go to retirement.
Another thing that stood out for me is that they were 59 when they started all of this. They didn't wait till they were 64 or 65. They started early. So if you're 55 and older, maybe you have questions about what Clint just talked about, or you want to get started planning for retirement, you can schedule a Retire Ready call. It is an easy, low-pressure way to get started planning for your retirement. You can schedule a call at retirereadycall.com. So a large IRA, it's not just about income planning though. For a lot of people, it's about a lasting legacy. We've got one more strategy next. Welcome back. I'm Molly Nelson here with Loren, Merkle, and Clint Huntrods, and we're talking about large IRAs and trying to help you make the most of them. We have a third planning strategy, and here's the name of this one. It's IRA to Charitable Remainder Unitrust. Loren, what does that mean?
It means a whole lot of ways you can save money and contribute to a charity at the same time. Well, essentially what it does, and let's go back to the $2 million couple. They have a $2 million IRA. What they can choose to do if they want to is live on that money, whether it's a plan that you've created, or they can just coast into retirement and start taking distributions, but they would assign the beneficiary to this trust that they've created. So they've created this trust. The beneficiary on the IRA is this trust. And if they set it up with this intention, the way that the trust works is this couple passes away. This $2 million or whatever's left underneath their IRA goes into this trust. And then they would pay out, the trust would pay out their beneficiaries over a designated period of time or for their life. Now, the strategy with this is the designated period of time typically is going to be more than 10 years. That's where the tax advantages come into play, or again, over the lifetime. So the kids receive this payment, and then whenever the beneficiary, the kids pass away, whatever's left in this trust gets passed on to charity. So a quick example, the $2 million IRA, they live on it, they pass away, it goes into the trust, they designate a 20-year time frame, and they designate a 5% withdrawal to the beneficiaries. So roughly about $100,000 of income each year. And if the performance on that trust is greater than 5%, it could be a little more. If it's less, it could be a little bit less. But over that 20-year time frame, maybe $2 million is paid out to the beneficiary. And if that account has performed at least 5% or greater, then it could be a $2 million benefit to the charity of their choice. So not only do the kids receive consistent, reliable money, but then they're making a big charitable donation at the end. In essence, that's how that strategy works. Now, there's a lot that goes into this. You can put some more detail into it and specifications into it. And before you do anything like this, you want to make sure you're working with an estate planning attorney and everybody's on the same page and really clear. So when we're talking about these types of complex solutions, we are working with the families that we work with and an estate planning attorney who knows what they're doing, and oftentimes a CPA as well.
Yeah, so some of the advantage of that, now we've found a way really to kind of bypass that Secure Act 10-year distribution rule. And so now we're stretching it out beyond that, which can have tax advantages. Some families might also not want their beneficiaries that are the non-part of that charity. They might not want them to get that full amount all at once. So this starts to stagger that out over a period of time. Maybe they believe that would fit better for their lifestyle and for some of their needs. Some of the disadvantages, they need to have charitable intent, because as we've talked about, that's a sizable amount of money that eventually will go to a charity. So it probably doesn't make sense if they're just thinking about how do we maximize our estate to non-charity beneficiaries. This might not make sense, but you can start to see a lot of positives, also some things that you want to make sure it's a good fit for you. It's obviously a bit more advanced and not a fit for everybody.
I was also thinking the advantage of, I've heard you guys talk about this, sometimes people don't want their kids to get the whole $2 million at once. Let's say you only have one child, $2 million all at once, depending especially on what age or where that person is in their life. That's a lot to inherit and could be squandered if not spent correctly.
Yeah, in my opinion, there's 3 strong advantages of using a strategy like that. That is one of them, where you can have a controlled payout to your kids, so they don't just receive the full $2 million and can go off and do whatever they want with it. So you have confidence that the kids are going to receive predictable long-term income. The other advantage, tax advantages, because you're spreading that tax bill out over a 20-year time horizon in this example, as opposed to the Secure Act 10-year requirement. And then also the charitable contribution. So if you're charitably inclined and you want to make sure your kids are taken care of over this time frame, it can work really well. You just have to be careful, because once you pass away, that money goes into that trust, it becomes irrevocable. So there's no fixing it after that. You have to really make sure you know what you're doing.
And this might fit in conjunction with some other aspects of that legacy plan. Maybe they still want money to go to their non-charitable beneficiaries, but they're accomplishing that maybe through life insurance or through real estate or through non-qualified or bank assets, which could pass through more tax efficiently. And they know that that's allowing them to accomplish those goals. And then the IRA, which poses the most challenges for distribution requirements and tax, maybe that's where they want to route more towards that charitable intent. So it can all work together as part of that larger plan. And that's something that families want to make sure they're thinking of.
That larger plan is a Retire Secure roadmap, and estate planning is on there. Even though a lot of this is something you would talk about with clients or talk about the families that individually serve, but an attorney would make it happen. An attorney would put it on paper, but it happens in a retirement planning conversation.
Yeah, we talk about the legacy plans and we can help design them, but we're not an attorney, so we need an attorney to be involved with that. But it is one of the pillars of the Retire Secure roadmap. There are 6 after all. There's the lifestyle pillar, that's the stuff you're dreaming about. And then there's the income, tax, healthcare, and investment pillars. So those 5 financial pillars are all the pillars of the plan, the Retire Secure roadmap, that helps you live the lifestyle retirement vision that you've always thought about.
And these were just 3 strategies for an IRA. I bet you guys, if we had another half hour, could come up with 3 more and then 3 more after that. There are a lot of strategies when it comes to an IRA. So maybe what we talked about today could fit your retirement vision. Maybe there's another strategy that you'd like to explore. Maybe you just want that consolidation thing that Clint was talking about in the first part of this show, because that could be a big advantage. Whatever's on your mind, you can talk directly with a retirement planner during a Retire Ready call. Here's how you do it. You go to retirereadycall.com. There is a calendar. You can choose a time and a date. And then what happens is you get some time with a retirement planner. It's pretty low pressure. It's low key. You can ask a specific question, or they can direct the conversation. It's just a great way to get started if you've been thinking about taking action, but you haven't done it yet. This is Retiring Today, and we thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, click here for another video. Be sure to subscribe to get more engaging retirement planning content.